You can be as wealthy as Jim Penman and experience mental health, or you can be broke. It gets all of us. We had a lady who I sent you through the details. When we rocked up to her place, she had been told that she had to get out of the house. So we basically said to her, what can we do to help? She said, you have restored my faith in humanity. And we sort of sat back and we thought, I wonder how many of those people don't say anything to us. We go and we clean their carpet and we just like two chips to the night. So we thought, let's try and create a door, a window, a starter. And we thought, let's put it on our shirts.
So welcome to the Jim's podcast today, and we're joined by Craig Smith, who's been on before, but this is a little bit of a different one. So Craig came on before to share his journey about how he built his business in originally, obviously flying and does some great stuff in the Mildura region. But mental health's been a bit of a passion for you recently, Craig, and you've been doing a lot of stuff at the franchisee level with initiatives, with various things, which I want you to talk about because I think it's great what you're doing. So first off, Craig, do you want to just share about why you want to come on and sort of talk about what you're doing in the community?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks so much for allowing us on to get our message out. So June's a very special month for my wife, Chantal, and I, because it's 12 months since her cousin took her own life. And she'd had a couple of attempts, or one that I do know of, and she'd been a troubled soul for a while. She had a few of her mates that she'd been exposed to suicide, and I don't think she'd get a really good on that. But anyway, beside that, we just wanted to do something in her memory to keep her memory alive. And we were actually traveling from Mildura up to Horsh weekends ago. And we were chatting, obviously, about Tia and what had happened and how it affected us. And more importantly, what we could do positively to try and make a difference. And we decided that we were going to change our shirts, which obviously, as you very well know, took a little bit of persuading from the top brass, which is okay. That's, we had a uniform for a reason. We have a uniform for a reason. So we spoke to the appropriate people and they couldn't have been happier. Jim, Ali, honestly, they were just absolutely fantastic. So what we have done, if I can show you the shirt we've got done, so we've kept the basic design of our work shirt, but what we wanted it to be a conversation starter so that we see, and we've done our stats, since we've been in business, which is 18 months, we've seen roughly around 1,100 people. That's the customers that we've been to. Yet about the ones that we've quoted and haven't won, but the actual customers that we've been to their house is about 1,100. And we worked on the theory that how many of those are struggling? How many of those, are putting on a brave front because they've lost their house? Then we had a lady who I sent you through the details of. When we rocked up to her place, mate, she was a nervous wreck. She had been told that she had to get out of the house. So obviously that's why we were there to clean the carpets. She had no place to go to. Her car was unregistered and unroaded. It also then had a flat tire. So when we were cleaning out house, and she was drinking heavily, which was like on that night, she wasn't a normal drinker, but she was drinking heavily that night. And we basically said to her, look, what can we do to help? So we called a real estate friend of ours because obviously we deal with our real estate agents. And we organised her appointment the very next day to go and get a house. Ultimately led to her getting a house. We rang out Chantal and said, can you bring a DAC out? So we changed the tyre on her car. So she went and got a permit the next day and she was able to move her car. And she just said to me, you guys are bloody incredible. She said, you have restored my faith in humanity. She said, and we sort of sat back and we thought, I wonder how many of those people don't say anything to us. We go and we clean their carpets and we just like two chips to the night. So we thought, let's try and create a door, a window, a starter. And we thought, let's put it on our shirt. So what we've done is up here, a guy by the name of Corey Idale, who's an incredible human being. He's just so selfless. He started up a group called Mates Incorporated. Mates Incorporated is a male's mental health group. And they do a few, particularly for up here, but anyone can be involved in it. But they have nights and up here where we go and catch up, and we're able to talk freely about our mental health battles. And it's just an incredible organisation, but it's in its infancy. So we thought, let's get some publicity out for Corey and Mates Incorporated. And then Chantel said, I'd like to have a tribute to Tia. So we found if you can see this here, it's the suicide awareness ribbon. And the slogan that we put in there, no one fights alone. So that's on the arm of the shirt. It's also on the back of the shirt, which hope you can see that.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, if you pull up a little bit more. So no one fights alone says tomorrow needs you.
Yeah, like tomorrow needs you, yeah. And they have been, those slogans, and down in there is a direct tribute to Tia. Tia 94 to 2024. She was 29 when she passed away. So those slogans, we've found them that they are doors for people, for the conversation to start. So we just hope that by having these on our shirts, we're able to start that conversation, to maybe get someone before they get to the stage where they even contemplate suicide. Mm-hmm. So the other thing we've also done is Chantal and I have also enrolled in a grief counselling course, or what they call a trauma course. So if people get to the stage where they're actually contemplating, we've actually got skills to talk to them, because as we've said in the previous podcast, when we go to the house, it's generally me doing the work and Chantel's talking to the people there, and Chantel's the one who does the quotes and the first inspection. So it's an opportunity for the customers if they're struggling. And the best part about it is quite often you'll get, because we've got it on our arm, it's what's that ribbon? Oh, it's the suicide prevention ribbon. Oh, okay, and that's the door. It's as simple as that. Or you get what's Mates Incorporated? Oh, that's a male mental health group. Oh, really? Okay. And that's the conversation starter. And it's just, look, the response has been incredible. And again, we need to thank Jim and yourself and Jim himself, just for getting behind us. It's just been incredible.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, Craig, so thanks for sharing that. The one thing I just want to share with people is, because you went to Ali and Jim, because obviously any alteration to the uniform needs approval, and they didn't push back at all. I presume they said, yep, Grove, love the initiative, go for it, which I want to point out for people is not the standard when it comes to franchising. And I think it's great because even though there's mental health causes in gyms and there's other people, I think you be able to do something at a local level which represents your community with Mates Incorporated and something that's close to you, and you're allowed to do that on your uniform. I think that's a great thing as well. So well done to yourself, and well done to Ali and the cleaning group and Jim for allowing you to do it. Because I don't think it's not that common a lot of times in franchising for that stuff to be allowed. They're very strict on it. So I'm glad to hear that was happened. And also for you, you're doing a course which is great. So just to point out for people that might not know, all franchisors and gyms do mental health first aid training, which is the suicide prevention part of the mental health first aid accreditation. We make them do it. It's compulsory. And they do it over a day and a half because it is, as gyms is 5,500 people. And unfortunately, we do have, every year there is multiple suicides, unfortunately, and it's quite devastating for the group and for the franchisors and the franchisees in those divisions. So it affects us like it does the broader community. So first of all, Craig, let's talk about how it works with customers, because we obviously we're not mental health professionals, but you've got some training in there. And we've got to make it clear to people that we're not professing to be mental health professionals. And but as you said, it's just that you're starting a conversation with person via that symbolism, and then that's the gateway for them. If they want to talk to you, then you're using that. They can talk to you, and then you can then just be a lending ear and refer them on to somewhere else. Or how's that sort of?
We try and be behaviour. Sorry, we're a jaw furniture. A conduit. Sorry, we're a conduit. So basically, you've got someone who's got issues, who's prepared to talk, while the iron's hot. Get into it. Someone who has better skills than what we have, and can help them. Can really talk them and explain how important life is, because that's a lot of after Tia's passing and the sort of high profile, the Selwood brothers, and his Froys of the world. the topic that we or the conversation, the line that we hear so much is that I just wish they would have known how much they're loved in real life, whilst they were alive. And that is so important to us, to get them that help before they even get to the stage where they're contemplating doing something so horrendous, or horrific, that's
Yeah.
what we're trying to do.
It's interesting because unfortunately in the media it seems to fluctuate when someone's a sports person or celebrity, that chooses to end their life. That's when it comes back in the national conversation, then it goes away again, and something will happen, it comes back in, it sort of goes in a way because I think if you look at some stats, there's a lot of awareness around this stuff now, but in regards to the actual decrease in the rate, I think it's a really slight percentage, but it's not as much as what you would think for how much spending and awareness there is. So there's a lot of work to do. So with conversations from you're having, like, how many people do you reckon, like, just because what you've done, have actually said something to you? Has it been like 10? Has it been 20? Or has it?
Honestly, we've had these shirts now for probably 3 weeks now, and I reckon we've spoken to 20 people that have actually asked for assistance. The doors that they've opened up, the conversation starters. The other thing that I was going to mention is the fact that we're based in rural Victoria, and as we said in the other podcast, you've got to do things differently in the bush. And at the moment, we've got in this area in Victoria, suicide once every 10 days. I mean, that's scary, when you consider suicide is still the leading cause of death for Australians aged 15 to 44. We don't, as a country, as a government, we don't do anything about it. It's sort of like it goes on and we pretend we want to do something about it, but in the end, we're not doing anything about it at all. If it was cancer, if it was, anything that we could see and touch and feel, we'd be throwing money at it left, right and centre because it's the leading cause of death in Australians aged 15 to 44. I mean, that should just say it there that we need to do something about it.
You're right, Craig. Yeah, you're right. If it was labelled something else, like a cancer or something like that, I think there'd be far more stuff. And look, government's throwing money at it, but where does that money go? Is it effectively spent? You're in a regional area, for example, so people want to know, but like, if someone's mental health treatment goes most of the places, you have to go to emergency ward first, and then you have to see if there's a bed in the acute or the acute patients things, and there's nowhere near enough beds in regional areas anyway, from what I know. And then in cities, it's even worse. And then you got the poor old, emergency department, someone's in there for 3 days or 2 days, having a mental health episode, and there's no real support for them. And not only that, you've got the in-home care as well and these things. So there's a whole bunch of things which we're not experts and we're not professing to do, but this is just from what we can see. But I think it's amazing. This one's about that impact. So 20 people in a week have already noticed what you've done on that shirt and actually then asked you about it and then opened up to you, 20 people.
Yeah. And they are people that we have channeled to Lifeline, Beyond Blue, which we have local people up here who do it, which is incredible. Local volunteers. A very good friend of mine she's recently retired and she's taken on fully trained. She's a Lifeline counsellor, grief counsellor. And so 20 people have noticed the shirt, asked us about the badges and what they all mean, and said, oh, geez, and we've sat down and we've literally had a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and discussed, or a drink or whatever. And we've discussed it, and they've said, I'm doing it rough. And we've given them numbers, and said, here, look, please, while the iron's hot, while it's front of your mind, don't let it go to the back of your mind. While it's front of your mind, let's deal with it. Let's get you back on track. And honestly, the amount of support we have garnered in this town or this area is just incredible. It's just incredible because, again, you walk down the street and people sort of read the slogans on your arm and on your back, and they're sort of like, oh, you guys great for doing that. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful.
And I was going to say as well, especially up in your area, just the drought and how dry it is, and there's obviously farmers and a whole bunch of other things in regional areas. I think people tend to bowl in a bit more as well than, let's say, in the city, and a bit more, suck it up sort of mentality. So
I think in the city, the fact that they live in the city and a lot of them have got jobs, it can masquerade and hide the symptoms or the effects of of mental health, and I'm talking male and female. Whereas up here, I think the isolation is one of the hardest things because it's unfortunately, you know, some country towns are bereft of support services, and really up here, you really left to fend for yourself, which is not an ideal situation.
Yeah. I was going to say as well, with your course that you did, what was the course? How long did it go for? And if other franchisees wanted to do it, sort of what should they look up?
Absolutely. It was a grief trauma counseling course.
Mhm.
It went for 3 months, but it was only about I think it was in about 20 to 30 hours. So it was more designed for people that are working
Yeah.
and that, want to have a little bit, want to have a little bit of background to be able to help people. It wasn't a full, I guess that's why when we've spoken to the people, we've channeled them to people that have done a lot deeper course than what we have. So it's more, as I said, being the conduit between people that are ready to talk and the organisations that seriously help them.
What would you sort of say then to other franchisees who like what you're doing? Like, how could there's be a lot of franchisees who have a passion similar to you for this, but maybe haven't just taking the steps what you've done. You've been really proactive and it's been great what you've done. So how would you recommend other franchisees maybe do it? What could they do from their end, do you reckon? Or does it replicate what you've done, or what would you sort of say?
Look, I think to replicate in a form, but use your voice. Like you've got the ability to go and see a lot of customers, and we see a lot of customers. When all the franchisees, the amount of people that gyms between all the divisions, how many people they touch, but also the other side is open yourself up to having conversation. So instead of going to the house and it being a purely business transaction, open yourself up, be friendly. I mean, unfortunately, we're not all friendly and outgoing and all that sort of stuff, but, you know, talk to the customer and find out, I mean, you talk to a customer long enough and they'll open up and they'll say to you, oh, yeah, I'm moving out at home because, husband's walked or wife's walked or whatever. And, once you open that door, this is the important part to be found. Once you nudge that door open, you don't even have to open it the whole way. Once you nudge it open, deep down inside, a lot of people want to talk about it. If they trust you, they want to talk about it and they because they want some support. I think everyone who's going through, I know I've had mental health challenges, I know you've had, and I think deep down inside, we all want someone to give us some support. We want support from somewhere. I think half the issue is we just don't know where to start. And that's where I guess the shirt's coming in because we give them a starting point. We give them a mental trigger to say, today's the day. I'm going to fix up what's going on, what's going wrong more than anything.
Yeah, I'll throw something at you which you might find interesting that the number one use case for ChatGPT at the moment is counselling. So counselling and life advice are the top two use cases for ChatGPT. So that just sort of shows you that the need for these types of services, and obviously psychologists and psychologists in particular, it's very hard to get one anywhere. And, if you are, it's a costly exercise too and all these things as well. But what about yourself, Craig? Do you want to just share what challenges have you had over the years and how have you sort of helped yourself, or how have you had someone helped you, or what advice would you have others who maybe have mental health or challenges?
Yep. I had a marriage breakdown 10 years ago, which destroyed me. And the hardest thing I think was the fact I still haven't seen my kids in 9 years. I only have 3 kids. Yeah. So, and that was terrible. I love my kids and so I had some beautiful men who I was driving fuel tankers at the time, and I had some beautiful men who would ring me up in the middle of the night to see if they knew I was working, just to see how I was going. And that's all it takes. It just takes someone to nudge that door open. And if you get it right at the moment that you want to talk, they help me drag myself out of the situation. So that's Chantel's experienced mental health. I don't think I don't think there's too many people in our world today with everything that's going on that doesn't experience some form of mental health.
Hmm.
Some people have the tools to deal with it better than others. However, I just think there's a lot of mental health. I mean, particularly post COVID. If everyone was doing great pre-COVID, post-COVID, I think the world's just a different place. And I think now more than ever, mental health in the post-COVID era is going to be, well, it's already a biggest issue, biggest cause of death between 18 and 44. But I think it's going to just, it's going to multiply because there's a lot of people that have not come out of COVID really well. I think now more than ever, with the reach that gyms has, I think, and I know Jim is a mental health advocate, and I think now now's the time it can do us as a collective, as a gyms collective, can do something really special in the mental health space.
Yeah, I think if you're a franchisee listening to this and you want to do something similar to Craig, I'd say reach out to your franchisor, and if they refer it to us, we'll support it. I know some franchisees do the trademark shirts, which is a little bit similar in theory. This is a conversation starter, the colourful shirts, and I know some we allow the funky shirt Friday for some people who use that avenue as well. So I think it's great that franchisees like yourself and others who want to do this are driving the initiative. But yeah, a group-wide thing would be really cool. How we do that is another story. But in regards to what you shared there, which I appreciate you doing, it's not easy to share that. When you say you just move forward, 'cause what does that mean? Like, was it something where you just, you just kept showing up to work, or was it exercise stuff, or was it just talking to people? Like, how did you pull yourself forward? Because that's a really hard experience. And the reason why I ask is I know a lot of franchisees in gyms, or even people who are thinking about gyms, have experienced that in some way and can definitely relate to you. And there's obviously people who unfortunately will experience that moving forward. So what would you sort of say as advice around that sort of stuff? Because it's very devastating. Jim himself has experienced this. It's in his own book with not seeing his kids and things like that. And there are other franchisees that I know of who are going through a similar thing to you. What would your best bit of advice be around getting through that sort of thing, and what in reflection really helps you? Besides talking with your mates, which is great, but
yes, yeah. Do you know? I think that's the point before I go on. The point you made before is really important. The fact that mental health doesn't affect any one socioeconomic group. You can be as wealthy as Jim Penman and experience mental health, or you can be broke. It doesn't segregate. It gets all of us, So I think, no one is immune from it. This is an issue that doesn't matter who you talk to and who you come past in the street. It affects someone at some time in their life. So the biggest issue for me was I wanted to get better. I hated the fact that I was walking around hoping I suppose I didn't like myself the way I was. And I wanted to get better. And I made this, I guess, first of all, you had to bottom out. You had to get to the lowest wherever you were. And you had to think, don't be silly. Don't even think about doing that. And then once you bottom out, I think you need to look up and you need to actively find a way, and it's a different way for everyone. Find a way to get the information or the support or the friend, whatever you need to move forward. And that might be get involved in a group, for example, like Mates Incorporated. It might mean reconnect with your old sporting group. Like you may have played cricket and you're on your own, or football and you're on your own, and you get to a stage where you think, like, I just want someone around me. Well, then your old cricket club will welcome you back. Your old footy club will welcome you back. And it gives you that safety net, that support, where you understand how loved you really are. There's no place in the world where you find, well, there's no place in the world, family, sporting clubs, they're all places where you're loved. And I think that was important for me. So I rekindled with my old beer club. I hadn't been there in a few years, and I just went back one day and said, I'm just here to annoy the hell out of you. And they welcomed me back with open arms. Yeah. Incredible, and that was the start. but the one thing I did do is I taught. So I went and got some counselling. The company that I worked at the time had EPA, which I think we do as well. I think, and it doesn't matter if you don't. You can always go and find a counsellor. I took and I laid bare everything that I had done wrong and everything that I was feeling, and I slowly rebuilt myself pretty much because when you lose everything, we use the house analogy. You're back to a concrete slab, so you can choose to rebuild yourself. And if you rebuild, you can choose to rebuild yourself with different materials, or different experiences, or you can use it as a learning curve, as a, come back such a stronger human being, and so that's what I did. I talked. I taught.
How
How to
long?
say it.
How long did you commit to the counselling process? Like, how many sessions did you do?
I committed until the point where my psych said to me, "You're ready.
Yep.
You're ready." So I reckon I had about 11 or 12 psych sessions, and there was some pretty heavy stuff because it wasn't just the losing of the relationship and the losing of my children. We had to go back a long way,
Mm.
because if you're gonna rebuild yourself, this is what my psych told me. If you're gonna rebuild yourself, let's strip it all back. Let's start afresh. So I went back and I went through some stuff that happened to me a long time ago. I actually, and this is probably one of the silliest things I've ever said, but I actually fell in love with myself again. And that was the beginning of me rebuilding myself. The moment that I could look at myself in the mirror and say, I'm proud of you. You're a pretty cool guy.
And how did you feel after the first session when you first did it? Because it's a hard step getting there and making
Oh,
the thing. You're there and you're like, because I want to just, how did you feel after the first one?
I had the biggest headache you could ever have because it was emotionally draining, to and the way my sight to me was your emotions are a rainwater tank. And if someone cuts you off, you might say, "Oh, you're buggering," and that's a couple of drops in the rainwater tank. Your wife might leave, and that fills it up halfway. A mate, you might have an argument with a mate at work. It fills it up, three quarters of the way. But the reality is, it only takes one drop, one little droplet to potentially make that rainwater tank overflow. And if you don't keep draining the tank and allowing yourself to relax. So I made a pact with myself that I was going to stop working 7 days a week. So that was an important thing for me to actually commit some time to my new partner, who's now my wife, our one daughter, which is now two daughters. So I refuse to work 7 days a week, only because it gives me time to replenish the well, to drain the rainwater tank. So, but I talked a lot, and I got to the stage where I was comfortable in my own skin. Whatever that was, whatever people thought of me, I was comfortable in my own skin, and I felt that I could go out. And the one thing that my psych told me, and I don't know if this is the right thing to do, is that you've gone through the process. You've climbed Mount Everest, go and help other people. Pay it forward.
Mm.
And honestly, I get so much gratitude out of seeing people, which I guess is the reason for the birds. I get so much gratitude, and Chantel's in the very same boat, helping people that started off where we were.
Mm.
It's like, you know what? You always remember. I always remember the first person that come up to me at work and said, "Hey, what's going on? Come and have a chat. Have a chat." I always remember that conversation. I mean, I could recite it to you now, word for word. So to be part of that and to help other people is just a real special feeling, and it's part of that allows me to drain my rainwater tank because I still have issues to deal with. Like particularly starting a small business, I have a lot of issues to deal with, and it's hard, particularly out here in the bush. So to allow me to replenish the tank and to drain it, I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping our customers. That's what
Yeah.
they want, or anyone in general. Henceforth, podcast to try and get it out there. You know, talk, talk's the most important thing.
Well, the reason why I asked that question wasn't a prize. I just want to, if anyone's listening still, I just think it's important to get across to them. Like a lot of time people want to do what you do. They take the step, they book in, they don't have a good experience with the first one and they just stop going and they never go back again. Whereas
Yeah,
you've committed to 12 sessions and over how many long time, and you look at what the transformation's done for you over committing to that
yeah,
time frame. And I think a lot of people sometimes they do the hardest thing, which is probably ask for help. They go to the session and then they don't have a good experience, or it's really hard for them because obviously it's the first one or the couple is going to be very, very hard. And then
yeah,
they stop going, whereas you've stuck through it for the full 12 and then you've come out the other side a lot better. And I just think that's that trying to get across the people that you need to really commit to it over a long
yeah.
period of time to get the full benefit from it.
But the commitment is also, be honest.
Yeah.
You
But you're
can,
proactive. But you're proactive. That's the
oh
key as
yeah,
well. Sorry. The thing I want to say is that proactive. You are proactive over
yeah,
your mental health. And I think that's what a lot of people need to understand. No one's going to come and say, they may, but
no,
they may come and save you. But if you keep pushing the hand away, it's not going to always be there. So you got to be proactive about your own mental health. And that's what I think the key
yeah.
that I wanted to say at the start was you said proactive. And I think that's the thing. You're proactive about what yourself and you knew what was going on and you did something about it. I think that's the key.
No one can help you if you don't want to be helped.
Yeah.
I mean, we can have all the slogans on our shirts. You can throw all the money that you want to have at mental health. But if you don't want to help yourself, then you are not going to be helped, and
Yeah.
that's, so the thing that I had front of mind during the whole process was there's lots of people out in this world who love me. And if I wasn't here anymore, what would I be doing to them? I mean, I'm loved, everyone is loved. It doesn't matter who you are. You got someone in this world who loved you. So I was very lucky. Mine was my family, my mother and father and my sister and my brother-in-law, my now wife, and my kids. But in the early days, it was more my mum and dad and my brother and sister and brother-in-law, sorry. We're a very incredibly close family, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's your family. Again, the cricket club, your sporting club, everyone is loved. Everyone is valued. So, that's the stepping stone. That's the first stepping stone. Find where you are loved and immerse yourself in that environment. Because once you realize how much you loved and the value that you have as a human being, the idea of suicide potentially goes right out the window. You'll still have the mental health issues. What we need to do is take the suicide off the table, because at the end of the day, suicide hurts so many more people than the person that takes their own life, and that's the hardest, the people, and that's the part that we see from Chantal's cousin at the moment is the people that are left behind are just, they'll never be themselves.
Absolutely. You miss it. Yeah, you're right. And I think everyone listening to this knows someone or personally has been affected with a family member or a friend or something. I think that's how
Yeah.
bad it is in Australia. I think everyone, will have they'll know someone or they will have been personally affected by it. I think that's how bad it is.
To those people, to those people that are doing okay, don't help people, like don't be afraid to go up and talk to your mate, your girlfriend, your boss, anyone at work. Hey, matey, okay. Because we have a saying on another shirt where it's okay to not be okay. And, like we get presented with, we have relationships in so many different spheres, work, home, sporting clubs, so we all know people. And like you just said, we all know people who are struggling in life. Don't be afraid to be their knight in shining armor. Don't be afraid to be their sounding board. Because I know from experience, I'm sure everyone who's had mental health issues, a large portion of them, they want to talk. They're just looking for the right person with the right ear. So if you're in a good place in your life, don't be afraid to actually help someone. Open that door, ask that question. Like, I mean, we've done it with a shirt primarily because we're talking total strangers. You've got someone who's a mate. There's nothing wrong with going up and saying, "Hey, mate, how you doing? How do you really do it?" Or going out on a girls' night out. Hey, love, how you doing? Like, talk to me. You don't see yourself like, is everything okay? There's no harm in asking the question. Be their savior. Like because it's a beautiful feeling. Like and it's funny because when I got back on my feet, I actually rang the 2 or 3 people that I lent on and said, you know what, guys, I'll never be able to repay you. And one of the blokes who helped me a lot, he said to me, you know what, mate, you don't need to repay me, but all I ask of you is help someone else. You've traversed the journey, you've traversed the track. So you of all people have all skills to be able to help someone. So help them. Be their knight in shining armor. And that's a really important message. If you've traversed the track, help someone. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, I think people underestimate how impactful their words are, or just taking an interest in someone proactively can be massively impactful, as you've been illustrating multiple times with what you've already shared. So, Craig, is there anything I haven't asked you that I should ask you that you want to say before we end today?
No, look, again, I'd just like to reiterate the fact that at gyms, we are a family, and I know Jim uses that term, and it's bandied around quite a fair bit, that we're the gym's family, but we are a family. And I think the gym's family has got the ability to really do a lot in this space. And I think going forward, it'll take someone with foresight to really make a difference. And seeing the amount of people, I mean, if you work through the amount of franchisees that we have and the amount of customers that a gym's franchise has touched, I think we've got an incredible opportunity to make a difference in this space, which, as we discussed earlier in the podcast, government are not really doing a hell of a lot. I think gyms could do a hell of a lot.
Oh, you're a good man, Craig, and you've obviously already impacted multiple people, which is amazing. And hopefully more franchisees will take your example. And obviously there's a lot of franchisees who will have a passion for it, but they might not know the vehicle to do it with. And I think just starting with the shirts and getting something on there with their approval of the division and doing what you've done, I think is amazing. And
mate, the hardest part's starting.
Yeah, but I think
the part is getting it out and starting. Never where we start.
But I think just as a side note, 20 people already you've impacted, which I think's amazing. I think that's a massive credit to yourself and Chantel and your just overall initiative. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
But 20 people already you've made a difference to, and who knows what could have happened with that if you never. You don't know.
That's exactly.
We don't know, and that's the thing, right? So you're doing not only you're doing a great community service, but you're obviously doing a service to those people, and it's just being a good person. And obviously you get something out of that as well, knowing that you've helped someone too, which I think must have just as rewarding as anything else you can do.
I must admit, we both are incredibly stoked, but also incredibly, we hoped we hoped we were going to reach people, 20 people in the first 2 or 3 weeks. We never thought that we would get 20 people in the first 2 or 3 weeks actually say to us, "Hey, we're struggling." I mean, I think that just gives us a bit more of an idea as a collective how much mental health is affecting everyone on our planet at the moment. Yeah, that was the biggest shock for us, that 20 people in 2 or 3 weeks, that's just incredible. I guess it gave us a snapshot into how bad the mental health space really is at the moment.
Absolutely. Well, you're a good man, Craig, and I encourage if there's any franchisee wanting to do what Craig has done, you can reach out to us and we'll support it as well. But I think, group initiative, how we do that's another story. We've got TX and things like that, but as a public sort of initiative, how we do that, yeah.
And if anyone wants to talk to me or sharing out either Chantel or I, and they just don't know how to start, we're more than happy to have a half-hour conversation with them to give them a bit of an idea how we started. Yeah, so look, we're more than happy if they want to touch.
Well, we're very proud of you, Craig, as a franchisee. it probably doesn't mean much coming from me, but I know Jim and that would be. But I think what you've done, like, it's amazing, the initiative. And like, even though you're sharing what you've done, there's a lot of franchisees we want to hear from as well. So don't be shy and let us know what you're doing, because we want to interview you like Craig and share what you're doing. There's a lot of stuff that franchisees do that goes unrecognized, and they don't want recognition, but we're happy to support your causes and create content and all that sort of stuff and support what you
I
can.
think also, mate, I think you sell yourself a little bit short as well with what you do in this space. I'd love you to give a bit of promotion to your podcast and what you've done in this space, because I think, as I said to you earlier, like your story, what's happened in your world and how you've used that to be a positive influence within the gyms area. I think, yeah, please don't sell yourself short. You've done an incredible job.
We've inspired me to start my podcast again, because I sort of go off it a bit, because it's very draining sometimes mentally, and
Absolutely.
because of the nature of the subject I talk about, you do get a lot of no shows and stuff like that, and things. So but hearing you has inspired me just to start it up again. But no, what you've done, Craig's amazing. I do encourage, if you do want to do something similar to Craig, please reach out to us at head office. And great to have another episode that's not all about being a franchisee, because I think this is a massively important part of what gyms franchisees do. And if you're a non-gyms person listening to this or thinking about gyms, I think, like, you listen to the quality of franchisees and people we've got in the organisation like Craig, it's just amazing to have. So we appreciate your time, Craig, and you're looking forward to seeing how you develop this at your community level. I'm sure you're going to get media and stuff. Like, I know it's not your intention, but I know that for a fact you're going to help a lot of people with what you're doing. It's just a matter of time before you're the Australian of the Year.
Thanks, mate.
No worries. Thanks, Craig. Thank you for listening to the episode of the Gyms podcast. If you want to learn more about the Gyms Group, head to gyms.net or call us on 131 546 Australia or 0800 454 654 New Zealand. And if you did like the episode as well, please make sure you leave a review or a comment, or a thumbs up or a comment on the video as well. We appreciate your support. And until next episode, we hope you have a great week.